So I'd like to talk about how the Venusian essence, the Hyperborean spark, is oftentimes rejected from this dysgenic society, right? This sick and twisted society that values the immoral, that pushes and amplifies degeneracy as a form of progression, when in reality it is a form of regression and decay. So to really understand what I'm speaking to, we have to understand what a dysgenic society is, right? We all know about eugenics, that is oftentimes used as a weaponized word, right? Just like racism and all these terms that have been weaponized, that kind of prevents one from actually understanding the true essence and meaning behind the etymology of the words that are demonized, that are weaponized, right? And so I would like to share with y'all an excerpt from Alfred Avery's Armin and Runes and the Black Sun. Dysgenics is usually only mentioned in conjunction with eugenics. There is no need to discuss eugenics here, but dysgenics is an important and relevant concept to the topics of this book. Speaking of eugenics in anything other than the deepest critical terms is fully politically incorrect in our modern Western world, which is dominated by the anti-white liberal political agenda. The actual concept of eugenics, as opposed to the common sensationalist, emotional reactionary view of the word, must nevertheless be briefly examined for the sake of reference. Eugenics is defined as upbreeding through genetic selection. Nature, when left to its own devices, is eugenic because through natural processes, positive genetic traits are selected while negative ones are eliminated. Therefore, by modern liberal definitions, Mother Nature is a racist, as are all agricultural producers. Primitive societies continue to be subjected to genetic selection in much the same way as other organisms are. But this is not so in a civilization where the mentally and physically impaired no longer die out as they would in a raw state of nature, but are more likely to survive and breed. Nature simply does not want racial degradation, but it is striving toward a breeding in an upward direction of humans at all cost. A civilization may reach a stage where the selection mechanism is completely reversed. The most creative and intelligent have fewer or no offspring and must support the increasing proliferation of the least intelligent and creative. This may continue until there are no longer sufficient numbers of the intelligent and creative to sustain a civilization, and it collapses. This is the situation and the state of modern Western civilization at present. The liberal idea of encouraging all manners of ill health, both physical and mental, and its emphasis on equality instead of equity, favors the least able and the least fit for every aspect of society, from employment to positions of power to reproduction, while doing everything possible to limit, remove, and destroy the most able and most fit. Those of this perspective work to thwart, conquer, and eliminate nature. However, they cannot be successful because the laws by which the universe operates are nature itself, and therefore cannot be thwarted. No amount of ignorance, lack of acceptance of reality, and wishful thinking can change this fact. The freely and mentally working Aryan as artist, scholar, or poet of our days often earns barely during a whole week what a cabbage preparer earns in an hour. The most noble products for the well-being of a folk have no value anymore during the time of racial decline. Therefore, nobody pays for them. The cause of this phenomenon is dysgenics. Gorselbin notes the problem in his own time, which was almost 100 years ago now. But the problem continues on to this day in exponentially greater proportions. A dysgenic society such as ours no longer values anything spiritual or creative. The result is that creative and intelligent people must continually battle the dysgenics of their society in order to survive and to reach their full potential. However, creative and intelligent people are, for the most part, unsuccessful in a dysgenic society because what they have to offer in terms of their work and contribution to society is not valued or supported financially by society. Rather, such a society puts its funds towards the most spiritually and artistically void, lowest, most mundane and inane forms of entertainment. Only the best and brightest members of society have interest in the work of the intelligent and creative person. But the best and brightest, though generous with their funds, are too few to comfortably support the intelligent and creative individual. As a result, intelligent, creative, talented, able-bodied, hardworking individuals are frequently unable to make a living from any type of work that is within their propensities. They're forced to work miserable, low-paying jobs, and as a result of their poverty and inability to work according to their propensities, they are often without hope. They are prone to escapism, depression, addiction, and crime. They often become dark and jaded and can use their talents in destructive ways. Such can also be the case for any group of people who is constantly subject to racism and sexism and who are proclaimed to be worthless, such as straight white males. And so, it's as Miguel Serrano always says, winners lose and losers win in this dysgenic society. And as Savici Devi has brilliantly stated, gods, divinely inspired supermen, are not born on earth every day, nor every century. And when they do come and live and act in their miraculous manner, not every man, not every nation recognizes them. Blessed is the nation who follows to the bitter end the divine man born in her midst, and who, whether in victory or disaster, clings to their spirit. That nation will triumph over the forces of death in the long run, and thrive in beauty, strength, and joy, while the rest of the ungrateful world lies in waste at her feet. Obviously, any society that finds value and pride in absolute degeneracy is not going to be primed and able to receive the essence, the force, the gift, the offering of a God-man. Like, that dysgenic society is not going to be capable of receiving nor even conceiving of a spark that exist outside of the degeneracy of the tides, right? That spark that came here to change the tides, right? And so, that's really the unfortunate truth of existing in a dysgenic society as a Hyperborean. Because that eternal fire, that extraterrestrial spark that is beautiful, that exists outside of time and yet in time, with a destiny to change the tides, through that consistent rejection and collective condemnation, they oftentimes retreat back into themselves. They become reclusive and addicted, and really they go mad. And it's the unfortunate reality of a Hyperborean trapped in matter. All of that to say that I offer you this stream in honor of a particular Venusian whose extraterrestrial spark has shaped the very world that we reside in miraculous ways, and yet whose essence has been rejected, ignored on the world stage. And that is because this man to which I speak was a Venusian, a Hyperborean, who existed in time, though outside of it, in order to trigger destiny, right? This man was predestined to have a great impact on the whole of humanity and its future in correlation to the new earth golden dream, right? The age of Aquarius. And so the Venusian to which I speak is Nikola Tesla, right? Nikola Tesla was born at the strike of midnight between July 9th and July 10th during a fierce lightning storm. That which I see to be symbolic for his impact that he would have on reality and our future destiny. According to family legend, midway through Nikola Tesla's birth, the midwife declared the lightning a bad omen. "This child will be a child of darkness," she said, to which his mother replied, "No, he will be a child of light." The reason why I weave in the memory of Nikola Tesla in this video, where I have just kind of gave y'all a example of what it's like to be a Venusian, a Hyperborean trapped in a dysgenic society, is because we see the fierce rejection of this man's brilliance in the ways in which he was all but ignored, failed to be taught in the academia of this realm and reality, right? Even though his brilliant inventions have completely transformed the way in which we connect and maneuver around this reality in terms of energy. You know, that's just the ongoing battle in this age of woe, right? In the Iron Dream. And that is the battle between sovereignty and slavery, and those beings who fight in this war on currency. Because as I always say, it's a war on currency. It's a war on ether. And those who aim to infiltrate it, to manipulate it, and monetize it to implement systems of slavery, versus those who aim to work with it in harmony as energetic beings to give the whole of humanity sovereignty. You know, that's the tragedy of Nikola Tesla's story, is the very fact that he was a Venusian, you know, a Hyperborean with his extraterrestrial spark intact, who came forth to trigger destiny, but was rejected from this dysgenic society. And you know, the truth of Nikola Tesla's origin was actually recorded in FBI documents that I've only just now recently found out about. And so I'm going to share with you an excerpt from this FBI document that has recorded the truth of Nikola Tesla's Venusian origin.
Margaret Storm has been assigned to certain work with the space people as follows. She is writing a book, Return of the Dove, a story of the life of Nikola Tesla, scientist, and the part his inventions will play in the new age. Much of the data for this book has been supplied to Mrs. Storm through transcripts received on the Tesla set, a radio-type machine invented by Tesla in 1938 for interplanetary communication. Tesla died in 1943, and his engineers did not build the Tesla set until after his death. It was placed in operation in 1950, and since that time, the Tesla engineers have been in close touch with spaceships. The space people have visited the Tesla engineers many times and have told us that Tesla was a Venusian, brought to this planet as a baby in 1856 and left with Mr. and Mrs. Tesla in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia.
The truth of his origin has literally been recorded in an FBI document. And who's also important in this story is Margaret Storm, who wrote the book Return of the Dove, who was destined to record the story, the legend, the mythos of Nikola Tesla and the impact he would have on the new age.
In 1959, an interesting book by Margaret Storm was published about Nikola Tesla. Only 9,000 copies of this book were originally printed. This book became the subject of much ridicule and speculation, perhaps because of the spiritual intonations, but more likely because of the claims that Nikola Tesla was not from this planet. But what is even more interesting is that, for some reason, nearly all of the original copies of this book disappeared from shelves, and this was purportedly the result of government intervention. The government seized Tesla's papers immediately after his death, and to this day, even after the passage of the Freedom of Information Act, much of the material related to Tesla remains secret and in the hands of the government. Tesla claimed to have developed methods of protecting the entire country with a force field, as well as having claimed an electrical superweapon and gravity-defying flying machines. Flying saucers? Just as mysterious, Margaret Storm, the author of Return of the Dove, disappeared. We have not even been able to find a record of her death. At the end of Return of the Dove, Margaret Storm stated that there would be a sequel, Flame of the Dove. This book to be was never published, and all efforts to contact Margaret Storm over the past 2 decades have resulted in dead ends. Was this a result of government intervention? On this and many other aspects of Margaret Storm and Nikola Tesla, we can only speculate. One thing is for certain, that is that Nikola Tesla was genius and a great man. Without his inventions, we would not have radio, fluorescent lights, automobile ignitions, cable TV, the turbine engine, 60-cycle alternating current, AC, electrical motors, electrical generators, and many of the other things that we take for granted in our everyday lives.
And so, yeah, now I wish to share with y'all a bit from a blog that I will link in the description below about Nikola Tesla and the mysterious girl that he corresponded with, and the ways in which this connection reveals a common Venusian origin.
If Nikola Tesla's discoveries were always a point of interest for the foreign intelligence agencies, His correspondence with Maria Orsic must have been the #1 priority. Nikola Tesla and Maria Orsic have a lot in common. They were both native to former Yugoslavia, without children, both vegetarians and animal lovers. More importantly, they were both closely monitored by the military and intelligence agencies. Tesla was monitored by CIA and FBI agents, while Maria was followed by the Gestapo and the SS. As the Alice Sol portal reports, if Tesla's electromagnetism discoveries were of utmost interest for the foreign intelligence services, then his correspondence with Maria would have certainly been labeled top interest as well. What especially bonds Maria and Tesla, and was of interest for the foreign services, were their UFO-related discoveries and extraterrestrial contacts. Tesla was a scientist and an electromagnetic expert, but Maria was just a regular long-haired girl with an affinity for ballet and languages, until she all of a sudden fell into a trance one day. Since then, she started acting as a medium, and while in a state of trance, she started receiving various technical information and directions on how to construct a UFO. Detailed plans and UFO designs were recovered among Tesla's files. What's even more peculiar is that Maria claimed to have gotten the instructions in a Sumerian dialect from the planet Alpha Centauri. She also received information about the creation of the universe, lost cities like Atlantis, and technical information on how to build a flying machine. In order to interpret her designs, her father got her in touch with Dr. Otto Schumann. Based on these designs, the Germans tried to build a UFO in 1922, but the project was doomed since the first flight was a complete fiasco. Just 3 days later, Maria returned to Dr. Schumann with new information, and they allowed for a new model to be constructed, one which flew for 55 minutes and at one point reached speeds of 300,000 kilometers. Tesla, on the other hand, wrote about aliens in Sanskrit. He claimed that there are two types of aliens who are at war between each other. For the sake of mankind, Tesla designed a weapon he called the Death Ray, which, according to him, was able to destroy any kind of spacecraft. I've devised a way for people to transport enormous amounts of energy from one planet to another, regardless of the distance between, Tesla said in a statement in 1931. The U.S. President Eisenhower, without the Congress's knowledge, approved massive funding for the construction of a research facility that will operate based on Tesla's files. Tesla died in 1949 in New York, and the American government confiscated all of his records and files immediately. Maria Orsic disappeared in 1945 without a trace. It should be mentioned that in March that same year, in a state of trance, she received information about the fall of Nazi Germany before the end of 1945. And, as far as Nikola Tesla's romantic connections, he was celibate, as many master Venusians are who come forth to trigger destiny, right? Who come forth to pave the path to the golden age. He once said that, "I do not think you can name many great inventions that have been made by married men." And that is because a particular solitude is almost required for one to really own in on their genius, right? And that doesn't mean, though, that he did not have the influence from a beloved, right? Because as we know, all Venusians, all Hyperboreans are Orphic in nature. And so I'm going to share with y'all an excerpt from Margaret Storm's book, Return of the Dove, that really helps to reveal this truth. When Tesla volunteered to take an embodiment on Earth, he did not come to the planet alone. He was accompanied by his twin Ray, an entity so highly evolved that she did not take a human body, but instead manifested through a beautiful white dove. Naturally, living in New York, the dove could not appear too beautiful, or too exceptional, or she would have attracted too much attention. So Tesla's pigeon, as she was called, looked much like any other pigeon and mingled freely with her bird companions in the New York parks. But Tesla knew her well, and he could spot her instantly among hundreds of other pigeons. "A white female with a touch of gray in her wings," he used to say. "I would know that pigeon anywhere." Naturally, Tesla never gave the slightest hint as to the actual identity of the bird. In many quarters, he was considered just a little overtouched by genius, and his remarks from time to time left his listeners with their heads fairly spinning. Assuredly, he had no way to reveal that the white dove, with a touch of gray in her wings, was his twin Ray. It is only in recent years, since Ascended Master Saint Germain began his major activities in connection with the New Age, that even disciples have known a few facts about twin rays. But one of Saint Germain's projects is to bring together the pairs of twin rays in embodiment at the present time, and thus far he has united a considerable number. This is of tremendous value to his Aquarian program, because the average disciple working alone accomplishes very little at best. But if a disciple can be reunited with his or her twin ray, the spiritual efficiency of the two, working as a team, is increased about 1,000,000-fold. The ray divides into positive and negative white fire beings after the original divine spark leaves the great central sun of the galaxy. That sun is composed of two twin flames, Alpha and Omega. The white fire beings, individualized into positive and negative polarities, are completely free. They also have all the attributes of the Godhead. They are endowed with free will and may do exactly as they wish. They need not leave Alpha and Omega if they wish to remain. On the other hand, they may pursue an evolutionary course if they so desire. Those of us who are here on Earth today are accountable only to ourselves for getting involved in what seems to be a somewhat hazardous ordeal. We were once white fire beings, but we wanted to go out and explore the cosmos, and we were for some reason attracted to this planet. Usually, twin rays do not remain together during their evolutionary explorations. Sometimes one remains with Alpha and Omega, and one goes forth to wrestle with the world of matter. But at no time are they ever separated so far as their higher presence is concerned. When Tesla volunteered to come to the Earth, his twin ray, exercising her free will, decided to accompany him. Not only because it would be more pleasant for them to be together, but because her presence would enormously increase his efficiency in the job he had to do. She wished to remain in the background, however, so she chose to manifest as a white dove. She was always somewhere fairly near Tesla, and they were in telepathic communication. Frequently, she flew into the open window of his hotel room at night, and they would have long talks together. But she was an advanced initiate in her own right, and made herself as useful as possible in the service to the light.
I just find that highly significant in its immaculate revelation. Right? Because everything that I speak to is always the Venusian origin and the Orphic template of beings who descend from that origin. Right? And so when I discovered this truth of Nikola Tesla with his special connection to this pigeon, to this dove, and the ways in which this was actually his twin ray that took shape and form of a dove, of a parakletos, which is highly symbolic for anyone who follows the work of Maestro Miguel Serrano.
The age of Pisces, that of the Fisher King, will be replaced by that of Aquarius, that of the Holy Spirit, of Parakletos, the dove, which is female, the morning star of uncreated light, Venus, Lucifer. The old earth will be replaced by the new earth, which has begun its transfiguration. The involution of the Kali Yuga will have been overcome.
You know, how profound is the story of Nikola Tesla, right? A legendary Venusian who was master of the ether, who came forth with an offering to free humanity from the enslavement we have to currency, right? And the enslavement we have exists due to the manipulation of this free energy, of the ether force, right? And so it's just truly profound to really delve into the hidden nature of his story, you know, to recognize that this was a Hyperborean who was accompanied by the Parakletos, right, the female, Venus, to really ignite his genius. It's truly a misfortune to witness how a dysgenic society rejects this spark of genius, rejects the Venusian essence that comes forth to trigger destiny, that comes forth to end cycles and pave the path to a new cycle. And so I thought about, you know, the irony, the absolute irony of the fact that this plasma wizard created the Warden Cliff Tower, right? And this was a tower that harnessed the energy from the inner world. This is ether technology, right?
that which powered the pyramids, was the same Hyperborean science that powered the Wardenclyffe Tower, that was Nikola Tesla's gift to humanity to free us from the slavery to currency. And yet nobody knew about it, right? That tower, the Wardenclyffe Tower, was actually built in Shoreham, Long Island, which is in Suffolk County, the same county that I am from, and yet I never knew of its existence. And the irony of this offering, right, this divine display of ether technology used for the betterment of all of humanity, what happened to this invention? What happened to this creation? It was demolished. This tower was demolished, and guess, ironically, what was put in its place? A nuclear power plant, right? What an ironic display of the powers at play, right? The anti-ether systems versus the ether systems. The masters of Venusian energy versus the slaves of Atlantis, versus those minions of the Dark Lord who aim to infiltrate free energy, to use it as a commodity, to reign over a system of slavery, right? Again, it's all a war on currency. Tesla was a master Venusian. He was a magi scientist of the ether. Believing that the ether was one of the most important results of modern scientific research, Tesla refused to abandon it because in his mind the ether was an important key to understanding how electrical energy could travel through space without wires. He displayed this phenomenon in numerous experiments and lectures throughout the 1890s. Again, we have anti-ether systems that are controlled by the Dark Lord, and then we have free energy, the true currency, the ether force that is oftentimes infiltrated by those who are not worthy of this currency because they do not harness it with a means to offer sovereignty, and in place invert it for slavery. And so it's no wonder that we were not taught of Nikola Tesla. And in place we were taught of Thomas Edison. We were taught of all of these Dark Lord minions who manipulate the ether force to create systems of slavery. Contrary to the extreme misfortune that Nikola Tesla was a genius that was ignored in terms of what is taught in academia in relation to energy and currency, I truly believe that his role, as Margaret Storm has revealed to us in her book, Return of the Dove, his role will play a significant part in the coming dawn, right? In the new age. I truly believe this. All of the symbolic coding of his story, of his legend, of his mythos reveals this truth to be, right? It's a thing of destiny. And interestingly enough, Nikola Tesla, born at the strike of midnight between July 9th and July 10th during a fierce lightning storm, right? All this coding. This would signify the fact that he is a Cancerian. And I believed that the Cancerian is not ruled by the moon, but by the black sun, which makes all the sense because Cancer's beloved would be Leo, right? Because they are both the luminaries.
It pays to highlight what I mean here in theory when I say that the moon is the false representation of the Cancerian archetype. The Hyperborean story is both mythology and astrology, and understanding both in relation to your own gives deeper clarity. The 12 signs of the zodiac are divided into 6 masculine and 6 feminine signs. We find an Orphic pair in a shared planetary body. Each wandering star has an alpha and omega energy, a yin-yang template of Orphic harmony. I go over this in greater detail in my video, The Hyperborean Orphic Alchemy and the 12 Masters of Ilu. The earth and air signs are Hyperborean twin ray pairs as they link up orphically in these planetary homes. Venus rules both Taurus and Libra. Taurus is the feminine face of Venus. Libra is the masculine face of Venus, revealing a Hyperborean Orphic pair. Saturn rules both Capricorn and Aquarius. Capricorn is the feminine face of Saturn. Aquarius is the masculine face of Saturn, revealing a Hyperborean Orphic pair. Mercury rules both Virgo and Gemini. Virgo is the feminine face of Mercury. Gemini is the masculine face of Mercury, revealing a Hyperborean Orphic pair. The water and fire signs are Hyperborean twin ray pairs as they link up orphically in these planetary homes. Mars rules both Scorpio and Aries. Scorpio is the feminine face of Mars. Aries is the masculine face of Mars, a Hyperborean Orphic pair. Jupiter rules both Pisces and Sagittarius. Pisces is the feminine face of Jupiter. Sagittarius is the masculine face of Jupiter, a Hyperborean Orphic pair. We find the original tragedy of the Orphic partition when we come to Leo and Cancer. Leo, the king, ruled by the gold sun, and Cancer, the mother, supposedly ruled by the moon. In this, they are then ruled independently. Therefore, they break the Orphic patterning. Again, this reveals the tragedy of this story and makes sense because all experience is determined through the cyclical nature of the solar bodies. As Aryans, we rise and fall with the great central sun. Here's a thought to ponder. If Leo is ruled by the masculine sun of gold, then by Orphic law, it only makes sense that Cancer is then ruled by its counterpart, the feminine sun of Violet, the black sun, making Tesla's affinity with the ether spot on in terms of coding, as he was literally a Venusian under the sign of Cancer, harnessing the vril force of his true planetary home, the progenitor of all Hyperboreans, the black sun, not the false luminary, the moon. Miguel Serrano has said that which is solar is Aryan, and that which is lunar is Semitic. Could this theory bring greater detail to the theory of the Saturn-Moon matrix? Is the mother energy being harnessed via a false luminary, aka the moon, awaiting her redemption through the Black Sun prophecy, which will free all Aryans from Semitic influence, aka lunacy? Pun totally intended. In any case, it's a theory to at the least leave you questioning. How immaculate to ponder the significance of the fact that this ether priest, Nikola Tesla, this Venusian master, was under the sign of the Cancerian, who is ruled by the black sun. And that this theory that I pondered in terms of Cancerian being hijacked by the false luminary, that just reveals the coding of the story of this war on currency, right? This war that we have been battling through the duration of the Iron Dream, right? It is all revealed through astrology and mythology. And we see the truth of this story reflected back to us through the legends of these archetypes that come forth into matter to trigger this specific destiny. Right? It's no coincidence that this plasma wizard was a Cancerian who is ruled by the violet sun, the hidden one, the source and force of all everything, right? The progenitor of the Hyperborean. And so, of course, he would be ignored. Of course, all of his genius would be seized because the Venusian is rejected from a dysgenic society that does not honor genius, that rejects the Hyperborean spark of intelligence. Another thing that will offer a chuckle is a quote that he has said, a rather short quote, but again, profound in what it reveals. And I want you to fill in the blanks. Nikola Tesla was once quoted saying, "Myths, never trust a..." Fill in the blank, because again, it reveals the profundity in the truth of not only his origin, but who he came to serve, right? So good, so obvious. Again, the symbols are too intelligent to be rational, and yet it makes sense to the Aryan who is awakening.